Hi everyone, welcome to our week 1 day 1 training session of learning Oracle GOldengate Classic Architecture training. My name is Ashish Agarwal, and I'll be delivering this lecture to you. So before commencing the session, just a quick round of update regarding my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Ashish Agarwal _GG. So if you haven't visited the channel, I would request you to do visit the channel and do like, share and subscribe the channel. The channel is dedicated to Golden Gate related videos. Thank you. So the today's session is day 1. So we are going to discuss. So first of all, about me, just to introduce about me. So I'm expert in Oracle Golden Gate and Oracle database. I have 16 plus years of training experience in Golden Gate, and I have various high rated courses available like Golden Gate Classic, Golden Gate Microservices, and Veridata. Now the list, I have trained almost 6,000 trainees and taken 260 plus corporate batches. I'm Oracle certified professional and Oracle Golden Gate certified. I'm regular blogger and speaker on Golden Gate, so I've presented my papers in a lot of groups. I've also presented my paper in Oracle Open World as well. And you can always reach out to me via email if you need any assistance, or tweet me, or you can always leave your comment on my YouTube channel. And if you're enrolled for that training, you already have my WhatsApp number. You can always reach me on WhatsApp as well. And you can find my WhatsApp details on my YouTube channel as well. So the agenda of this training, the complete, so this is 23 hours training which we are going to run, and we are starting from today. So the overall agenda, I have tried to summarize it. We'll be discussing much more than that, this what is mentioned over here, but just to give you a brief overview of agenda. So we'll be discussing about introduction, architecture of Golden Gate. So the training now we are conducting on the latest version 21c, and this is the first weekend batch I'm doing on Golden Gate 21c. Okay. Then we'll be discussing about Golden Gate upgradation from one version to another version. So we'll be doing in place, out of place upgrade both. And then how to perform installation of Oracle Golden Gate. What are different concepts and components of Golden Gate? DML replication, initial load using Oracle Golden Gate. Okay. Then data filtration and transformation. So Golden Gate supports data filtration and transformation as well. That means you can filter out the transaction or transform the data as per your business requirement. Then Golden Gate support bidirectional configuration, bidirectional automatic CDR, which is the new feature, conflict detection and resolution. DDL replication. So Golden Gate not only supports DML replication, that is insert, update, and delete, it also supports DDL replication. So how does it support? How does it happens? We'll be discussing. Then how to monitor the lag in Golden Gate environment. How to perform Golden Gate troubleshooting. Now this is one of the major area where people lacks. So we have a dedicated session for it where I discuss with you about troubleshooting. I will guide you how to perform troubleshooting steps in Oracle Golden Gate environment. Then what is Golden Gate checkpoint? We discuss. So checkpoint ensures data integrity. So what is Golden Gate checkpoint? Then security is one of the another major aspect in Golden Gate environment. So we'll be discussing about that. Then parameters involved in Oracle Golden Gate. Log dump utility, which is used to read the Golden Gate trail file for troubleshooting purpose. So we'll be discussing about that as well. Then the new then we'll be discussing about performance tuning during the session. Then parallel Replicat, which is the another new feature of Golden Gate. Then Golden Gate heartbeat table to monitor the historical lag. Performance metric server, another Golden Gate new feature. And then Golden Gate self-describing trail files. Along with that, we are going to discuss about a lot more things as well. Okay. So the day one agenda. The day one agenda includes introduction to Oracle Golden Gate. Then we'll be discussing about overview of Oracle Golden Gate, types of architecture available in Oracle Golden Gate. Then what is Oracle Golden Gate Veridata? Then different types of extracts and replicats. GOldengate 21C introduction, GOldengate certification matrix. Then we'll download the GOldengate binaries, perform the installation of Oracle GOldengate, and then what are the locations we can download GOldengate. So we'll be discussing about what is GOldengate Hub as well. And then if time permits, we'll be discussing about prerequisite to set up Oracle GOldengate. Okay. So let us start the session now. Day one. So first of all, let us start with Oracle database architecture. So Oracle database architecture. So GOldengate is a product which applies the data, which captures the data from source database and applies it to target database. So first of all, to give you a brief overview, GOldengate was founded in 1995 and it was GOldengate at that time. In 2009, Oracle overtook it, and since then it is known as Oracle GOldengate. Okay, so since 2009, it is known as Oracle GOldengate. Okay, now GOldengate is a CDC tool. CDC stands for Change Data Capture. What does change data capture means is GOldengate captures the changes, whatever changes happens in the database, it captures those and applies them to the target database. So GOldengate is a change data capture tool. Now there are a lot of change data capture tool available in the market. GOldengate has a lot of competitors, but GOldengate is way ahead of its competitors. Why? You will understand it as the session goes on. But just to give you a brief overview, GOldengate captures the changes which happens in the database and applies it to target side. So GOldengate is a product which works on Oracle as well as non-Oracle databases. So GOldengate not only supports Oracle database, it supports non-Oracle databases as well. Non-Oracle database like SQL Server, MySQL, DB2, and other databases it supports. So each database has its own transaction log. So GOldengate captures the data from the transaction logs. So let us now discuss about Oracle database architecture to understand how GOldengate works. So Oracle database architecture. So Oracle database architecture is divided into two parts. First is instance and second is Oracle database, which contains the actual files. Now instance again is divided into two parts. One is SGA and second is background process. So in SGA you have library cache, data dictionary cache, database buffer cache, Java pool, redo log buffer, and large pool. Background processes include pmon, smon, database writer, log writer, checkpoint, and there are other background processes as well. Now in Oracle database you have got actual files. So first is data file. So data files are the files which contains the actual data. It contains the actual data. So when you do, say for example, select star from EMP11. So it selects the data from that particular table, right? So from where does it get that data from? That data is stored in data file. So say for example, you're connected to Toad or you're connected to Putty and you do select star from EMP11. You get the actual data. You see the data in DEPT11. So from where that data comes from? So that data comes from these data files. So data actually gets stored inside the data files. Then control files are there. Control files are the metadata files. They are the most critical files in the database. If you lose them, you are in trouble. So they contain control files contains the metadata information. Then you have the redo log files. So redo log files are the files which contains the changed data. So change data means whatever changes are happening in the database, those changes gets returned into redo log files. Now, once these redo log files get full, the backup of redo log files is taken on disk, and those are called as archive log files. So archive log files are the backup of redo log files, which contains the changes being made to the database. So remember one thing, whether you do any DDL change, any DML change, it gets written into redo logs and subsequently to archive log files. So these are the transaction logs. So in Oracle, these transaction logs are called as redo logs or backup of redo logs, which are called as archive logs. In case of non-Oracle database, like MySQL, SQL Server, DB2, these are called as the transaction logs. So the transaction logs contains the change data, whatever is happening in the database. Remember one thing, this is a tip for you, which will be very helpful as the session progresses. This redo log file or archive log file contains committed as well as uncommitted transactions. I have repeated it numerous times, but I'll repeat it again. Generally, there is a misconception that transaction logs contains only committed transaction. No, that's not true. These transaction logs contains committed as well as uncommitted transactions. But Golden Gate captures only committed transactions. You'll see that once we discuss about architecture. Now, how does the data comes into these redo log files? Let us discuss about that. Now, what happens is you have got database buffer cache under SGA, and you have also got redo log buffer. So redo log buffer writes the data. So whatever data is there in redo log buffer gets returned to redo log file with help of log writer process. But how does redo log buffer gets the data? Redo log buffer gets the data from database buffer cache. How? I'll tell you the process. This is just for your information. So say for example, you are doing update DPT table set location equal to XYZ, where department number equal to 10. So what happens is the data from data file gets returned into database buffer cache. It becomes so whenever any changes are made to the data, it becomes a dirty buffer. It is called as a dirty buffer. Now, once the buffer becomes dirty, the copy of that buffer gets returned into redo log buffer. Okay. Now, before with help of database writer process, what happens? The dirty buffer gets written into data files. But before that happens, the log writer process writes the data from redo log buffer to redo log files under following some circumstances. Whenever there is commit happens, the data from redo log buffer gets returned to redo log file with help of log writer process. Or when redo log buffer is 1/3 full, or when there is 1 MB of read, or every 3 seconds. And last is really very important. Before database writer process writes the data from database buffer cache to data file. So basically what happens is a buffer gets dirty. That means it is updated, deleted, or inserted, whatever happened. Okay. So database writer process writes the data from database buffer cache to data file. But before it could happen, the copy of that buffer gets written into redo log buffer. So from redo log buffer to redo log file, data gets written with help of log writer process. And then with help, and then once the data becomes return, once the data is written into redo log file, once it becomes full, the backup is taken into archive log file. So archive gets generated for that. Okay. But one question to you all. Suppose if database writer is writing data directly from database buffer cache to data file, what is the purpose of these redo log files? Why do we need these redo log file then? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. For recovery purpose, you need it. So for the purpose of recovery, it is required that data gets returned into these redo log files. Absolutely correct. So these redo log files basically are used for recovery purpose. Just to give you an example, say for example, you right now you have account in Royal Bank of Scotland, for example. Right now you have $5,000 into your account. You want to deposit $2,000 in your account. So you went to the bank, you deposited $2,000. The teller collected the money from you, and he or she deposited the money, and you went from the bank. So from the front end, the teller did their task. But when it was about to go to the database got crashed. Okay. So basically, the ID means, just to give you a high level overview of that, what happened was, at the front end, the changes were accepted, but internally in the database, they were not reflected before the change. Basically, the updated balance could become $7,000. Before it could be applied in the database got crashed. But the data is present in redo log buffer, or redo means with help of redo log buffer, it is present in redo log buffer, and hence archives will be generated. So when the DB is restarted, whatever changes were pending to be applied to the database, the recovery will happen from these archive logs. They will be applied, and the updated balance will be shown as $7,000. So this is the purpose of this redo log files. But again, I repeat, these transaction logs contains committed as well as uncommitted transactions. They not only contain committed transaction, they also contains uncommitted transactions as well. Okay. So guys, if you have any question, feel free to type in the chat window, or I'll give you a chance to ask the questions. Okay. Okay. Anyone has any questions so far? Okay. Let us move forward now. So Golden Gate is a product which allows you to replicate the data. So Golden Gate is a changed data capture tool, right? Now remember one thing, Golden Gate not only allows for Golden Gate is a change data capture tool. So Golden Gate is not the only product which is available in the market which is providing the same solution. So there are a lot of competitors of Golden Gate, like EMC, Recover Point, IBM Mirror. You must have heard SharePlex. So SharePlex is another product which allows you to replicate the data from one database to another database. So there are a lot of solutions available. Activity. So if in today's world I have to talk about the nearest competitor of Golden Gate, it would be either SharePlex or Activity. So, but still the market share of Golden Gate, I would say, is around 96 to 97%. Activity and SharePlex would form 2 to 3%. Still not much. But yeah, these are the biggest competitors as of now available in the market for replication product. So, but Golden Gate scores above its competitors still. Like, why the market share of Golden Gate is so high? What is the reason? The reason being, it supports heterogeneous databases. Another thing I'll tell you is, there is a financial, there is a technical reason along with that financial reason attached to it. Okay. So first of all, let us discuss about technical reasons. So with Golden Gate, data is sent in real time with sub-second latency. That means Golden Gate sends the data in near real time with sub-second latency. That means as soon as data gets committed on source database, it gets applied on the target database. Okay. Then Golden Gate supports heterogeneous as well as homogeneous environment. So that means that Golden Gate not only support Oracle, it also supports non-Oracle database. Another thing is it is platform independent as well. So the way Golden Gate works on Windows, in the same way it works on Sun Solaris, in the same way it works on Linux, in the same way it works on HP UX or any other version. Okay. So so another thing is, on source you can have Windows platform. On target you can have Linux platform. Golden Gate will replicate the data. On source you can have Sun Solaris. Target you can have HP UX. Golden Gate can replicate the data. Another thing is, your source can be on Oracle. Target can be on SQL Server. Golden Gate can replicate the data. Another important thing here is, Golden Gate also supports your means your forward compatible and backward compatibility as well. So say for example you are doing Oracle to Oracle replication. So on source you have got 19C version. On target you have got 11G database version. Can Golden Gate replicate the data? Yes. Golden Gate also can also support vice versa as well. Your source database version can be on 11G, target can be on 19C or 21C. Golden Gate can replicate the data. So no issues. Another thing is, your Golden Gate version can be different as well on source and target. So your source can be using 21C Golden Gate, target can be using 12C Golden Gate, or vice versa. Source can have 12C Golden Gate, target can have 21C Golden Gate. There is no issue with replicating data using Oracle Golden Gate. Then high performance with low impact. Now, one thing which is regularly being asked with from each and every client of mine is, they are very concerned about that, and they have to be, because if you are buying some new product, first of all you are spending money with respect to client, I'm saying. Second thing is, if everything is running fine today, tomorrow with introduction of new tool, what happens if database is impacted? So this is a common question which is being asked. Does Golden Gate impact the performance of the database? Is there any impact on the database if Golden Gate is installed on it? The answer to that question is, see, Golden Gate is a product which is external to the database. So suppose right now you have a server where database is running, right? So if you put Golden Gate on top of it for replication purpose, will it going to have impact? I always answer it in I always answer it as, like, see, Golden Gate is a product which is external to the database, right? And when you're putting some external thing on the database, you cannot expect no impact, right? Even though whoever, like Oracle or any other person, may claim it's a no impact. No impact means you might not feel it, but definitely there has to be some impact. So Golden Gate delivers high perform, but the performance or improvement or usage you would see related to the Golden Gate would be pretty much huge in comparison to the impact it has. And the impact it produces or it has on the database, it is minimalistic. You might not notice it as, but yeah, if anyone asks you, does putting Golden Gate on database will have any impact on Golden Gate? You cannot say no. It will definitely have some impact, though it will be minimalistic, but it will definitely have. Okay. Then another important thing with Golden Gate is, it has ability to move large volume of data very efficiently. So Golden Gate with newer versions, like you can move your blob, long data types efficiently. Until Golden Gate 11G, there were some restrictions. Then in 12.1 as well. But from 12.2, the restrictions are very much lifted. Another important thing is, there is now integrated extract, which we'll be learning as the session progresses. With introduction of that as well, Golden Gate capability has increased top notch. So most of the data types are supported. The impact on the database is really very minimal. Okay. Now there is a question. Can you please give any example of the impact that you might have experienced? I'll tell you. It depends. Okay. Another important thing. That is very good question Bhragraj has posted. The question is, can you please give any example of the impact that you might have experienced? I'll give you an example. See, any technology, not only Golden Gate, or in fact database, you need to have proper resources, right? That's why when a project starts, you need to ensure that all the requirements are properly gathered. So first of all, if we set up Golden Gate in the environment, we can divide our requirements in different categories. Like first of all, the requirement we can categorize as hardware requirement. First and foremost thing, this is most important task, which many times we ignore, but this is really very important. Hardware requirement is very important. Second thing is space requirement. We'll be discussing about all this, but because you have asked this question, so I'm just taking it as an overview, and I'll be discussing it in the subsequent part of today's session. So hardware requirement should be done properly. Space requirement needs to be done. Right. Now for hardware requirement, it is based on what all things you are going to run on the server. Right. So if you are using, say for example, your hardware today on 12th of August 2023, I have been asked to provide the requirement related to the database, that we have to build a database server. Okay. And we have to provide the hardware requirement. So I'll provide the hardware requirement. Say, for example, I need 4-core CPU. Okay. I need 1000 GB of space. Considering I did all the analysis of database related, how much data we are going to import from some other environment. Then for space, so I have done this. Okay. But I have done this as of today, considering only database. Now, after a couple of years, they come and tell that install Oracle GoldenGate as well on this server. Now, if I have to install Oracle GoldenGate on this server, but the capacity requirement, whatever was done, it was done basically based on database only. But now because I'm installing GoldenGate, I'm putting GoldenGate on top of it. It is definitely going to have impact, right? So impact may be the impact which is put on the database. You can again classify it in certain categories. First category could be it is Golden Gate impact. Second category would be the capacity requirement. Capacity requirement includes your hardware and space requirement. So if you are putting Golden Gate on the same server as the database server where it is running, and the capacity requirement earlier was done only for database, then you have to ensure that you add Golden Gate. So if you're putting Golden Gate on the same server as the database server, you ensure that you add sufficient number of CPUs which are required for Golden Gate. Same way, you should add the space as well, because Golden Gate itself needs space, right? So for that purpose, you have to ensure that you do all these. This is really very important, which generally or we might ignore. I've seen people ignoring it, but this is really very important. Okay. So Golden Gate supports your, as I mentioned, lobs, blobs, and with introduction of integrated extract, the life has become much easier, you will see. Okay. Then, apart from technical reason, there is financial reason associated to it. The financial reason associated to it is why Golden Gate is widely used, or why do you see Golden Gate that much is there is financial reason attached to it. What happens is lot of organizations have signed EULA, end user license agreement, with Oracle. So end user license agreement means is they are free to use Oracle Golden Gate in any number of environment. They can use Oracle Golden Gate in any number of environment for them. So when they sign end user license agreement, again it depends on terms and condition, and it comes with, like, they have to pay extra for it. But of course, everything depends on the terms and condition of an organization with Oracle. But end user license agreement frees up, that means, because Golden Gate is a separately licensed product, but when you sign EULA with them, what happens is you can use Golden Gate based on terms and condition. And being Golden Gate providing so much benefits for an organization, like you can use it for business intelligence purpose, zero downtime upgradation and migration, and other stuff, disaster recovery. So they use Oracle Golden Gate. I have seen lot of clients, almost 50% of clients do this. Okay. So that's why this is the another reason Golden Gate is widely used. So why Golden Gate? Lot of Golden Gate now is being used in all domains, almost all the domains. Like few days back, I was talking to one of the one of my student only. So they are using Golden Gate in automobile industry as well. Like I'm not sure why, but Golden Gate now is being used in automobile industry as well. So that is the power of Golden Gate now. So Golden Gate is being widely used in almost all domains. There is this slide what you see on your screen. It is based on around a decade back data released by Oracle. So top three of so Golden Gate. First of all, let me tell you, 99 or in fact 100% of financial institutions are using Golden Gate. 90 to 95% telecom domains are using Golden. You name a customer related to telecom, they are using it. Like in India, if I have to talk about Vodafone, if I have to talk about Airtel, they are using Golden Gate. US, if I have to talk about Sprint, AT&T, they are using. Top banks in the world, State Bank of India, they are using Golden Gate. Royal Bank of Scotland, Bank of America, CIBC, Scotia, everywhere Golden Gate is by widely used. Okay. So Golden Gate complements existing Oracle products, like it ensures that continuous availability of heterogeneous system is done, real-time data access for reporting. So you can use your data on target side for reporting purpose as well. Then real-time data for business intelligence. So Golden Gate along with Informatica is one of the best business intelligence tool available in the market. So in this training, during later part of the training, you will see how we can use Golden Gate with ODI or Informatica for business intelligence purpose. Then Golden Gate supports zero downtime upgradation and migration. So organizations buy licenses of Golden Gate and you can use Golden Gate for different solutions. So food and drug stores are using it. Financial data services, busiest ATM networks, all of them are using Golden Gate. So Golden Gate solution includes high availability. So high availability means once the data gets, say for example, your source database is in Dallas and target database is in New York. Now, due to some reason, there is some power outage in Dallas or some flood, due to which your primary database is not available. So what application will do is once the data becomes available on once if your database becomes unavailable due to some reason, due to this, so what happens is your Golden Gate is replicating data in near real time to target New York server. So what happens is with help of Golden Gate, because the data is available on target, your application switchover can happen to the New York server, ensuring that database is highly available. You can use Golden Gate for zero downtime upgradation and migration from one version to another version, from on-prem to cloud. Nowadays, organizations are using Golden Gate just for migration purpose. Like they have to upgrade Golden Gate for, they have to upgrade database from, migrate database from on-prem to cloud. For that purpose, Golden Gate is used because it provides zero downtime upgradation and migration. That you can use Golden Gate for live reporting as well. So live reporting means is I'll tell you one thing with reporting is what happens is with Golden Gate, when the data is replicating to the target side, you can run your reporting jobs from the target server. So once you run your reporting jobs from the target server, what happens is your load from the primary database is reduced. Hence, the response time of database increases. So you can use your target database for live reporting. You can use GoldenGate for business intelligence purpose. So as I mentioned, GoldenGate along with Informatica is one of the best business intelligence tool available in the market. So GoldenGate supports multiple databases as well as platforms. So GoldenGate basically can work on heterogeneous databases and heterogeneous platforms as well. Now, these are few of the ones which are listed over here, but GoldenGate supports much more than that. So GoldenGate can capture the data from Oracle, IBM DB2, SQL Server, Sybase, Ingress, Teradata, Enscribe, SQL, and Informix. Loads of databases are supported. Same way, platform-wise, you can use GoldenGate on Windows. Yeah, Postgres is also supported. So these are just to name a few database. Okay. Then OS and platforms, different OS and platforms are supported like Windows, Linux. So you will understand. Now, you may ask me a question that does GoldenGate supports Postgres database or does GoldenGate supports Azure SQL database? The answer to that question, you will be able to answer that question on your own in next 1 hour. How? I'll discuss that. So GoldenGate supports different platforms, Windows, Linux, Sun Solaris, HP UX, HP Nonstop, HP different flavors it supports. Okay. So it supports a lot of OS and platforms as well. Okay. Now there is a question how GoldenGate is different from DataGuard. Okay. Or how GoldenGate is different from DataGuard standby database because we can do the reporting from standby database. See, one thing here I want to tell you is GoldenGate is a product which is not only a replication tool, but it is much more than that. Okay. The reason being is you can compare. I always say when you are comparing DataGuard and GoldenGate, you can compare apple to apple, though on a high level term, they might seem same to you that GoldenGate is also doing replication or DataGuard is also doing replication, but that's not. The purpose of GoldenGate or the usage of GoldenGate is much higher or much vast than what DataGuard can do. DataGuard is just a block level replication tool. I should say database level replication tool. GoldenGate is an object level replication tool. You will understand this as the session goes on, but just to give you a brief difference, few of the differences, I'm telling you this. So GoldenGate is a object level replication tool. Object level replication tool means it can replicate the object level data. But DataGuard is database level replication tool. That means even if you fire or execute alter system command, it gets replicated. Apart from that, GoldenGate is a heterogeneous. GoldenGate supports heterogeneous databases and platforms. DataGuard doesn't. So another advantage with GoldenGate is you can have different versions between source and target. You can run GoldenGate from different server as well. You can have forward and backward compatibility as well. That means your source database version can be different, target database version can be different. Your GoldenGate database is in read-write mode. You can have GoldenGate set up in bi-directional replication. GoldenGate supports data filtration and transformation. So you can filter out the data or transform the data as per your own requirement. You can use other GoldenGate products like Informatica. You can use other products like Informatica ODI on the replicated database without touching the primary database, ensuring that there is no impact. Another important thing I'll tell you, with my experience and with the projects I have worked on, I'll give you an example of State Bank of India. And this is not the recent example I'm telling you guys. I always give one example of State Bank of India because that is very near to my heart. And another possible reason could be because it was such a complex environment, I have learned a lot. So I'll give you a brief about that. I'm talking about 2013, 14, or 15. Any one of you who is working in SBI. So for those who don't know about SBI, who are out of India, SBI stands for State Bank of India. And just to let you know, it is one of the largest bank, and and it is kind of a government bank, you can consider. Okay. So what used to happen was, until 2012, 13, if you recall as well, people were moving away from State Bank of India. The reason was they had a problem. They came up to me with a problem statement. I was working with some team at that time. I was not, that was again, I was quite new to Golden Gate at that time. And I was new at that time. So I was working with some other team at that time. So basically, they came with a problem statement to one of the project. Okay. Now, what happened was, I'm talking about 10 years back, or more than 10 years, in fact, 2012 to 2014, I'm talking about. So they had a problem that they had a primary server in Mumbai and secondary server in Hyderabad, India. They were replicating the data from primary Mumbai server to Hyderabad server. They had data guard set up. And at that time, they were on database version 11G at that time. Okay. Now, what used to happen was, they, I have seen myself, they sometimes used to generate their nightly jobs, used to be so intense, like between 2 to 6 a.m., post midnight, in fact. They used to generate almost 100 to 500 GB of archives on a regular basis. And this must have happened almost 10 to 12 times a month. Okay. Now, when these many archives used to be generated, their data guard setup wasn't capable enough to replicate these many archives in small span of time. And what used to happen was, they used to have lag. I have myself seen lag of almost 72 to 96 hours as well in their system. And consider SBI such a big database. At that time, when I'm talking, their database size was almost 43 terabytes. If I have to assume today, their database size should be 70 to 80 terabytes, if not less, if not more. Okay. At that time, it was 43 terabytes. So they used to generate so much of archive logs. Data guard always used to lag. And because data guard was lagging behind, they were really concerned that what happens if something happens to the primary database. There would be no way to switch to the secondary database. They cannot switch over because the secondary database is not in sync at all. So we worked on their problem at that time. We identified the possible solution and suggested Golden Gate to be used. Okay. So what we suggested was, we will create a parallel database on the Hyderabad server. We'll set up Golden Gate and we'll replicate data through Golden Gate. Let data guard run so that we can compare between data guard and Golden Gate. So we set up Oracle Golden Gate as well on that server. And you won't believe, after setting up Golden Gate, there the replication was in near real time. Guys, one thing is, Oracle claims this product to be real time, but I always say near real time. No product in this world can be real time. Real time means as soon as data gets applied on source database, as soon as it gets committed on source database, at the very same moment it should be applied on the database. But that's not true with Golden Gate. It takes few seconds to some seconds to apply the data, right? So GoldenGate is a near real-time replication. So what we identified was, even when such a huge archive generation was happening, GoldenGate was able to replicate the data. The maximum lag we noticed was maximum an hour during such a high archive log generation phase. Maximum lag, I'm telling. But apart from that, it was generally less than 20 seconds. So GoldenGate was able to replicate the data. And then what the SBI team did was, they switched over their reporting jobs to the Hyderabad server because the data was near real time. Hence, they switch over their reporting jobs to Hyderabad server. After that, the primary server was only used for OLTP transactions, and with that, the customers' satisfaction increased. After that, and the response time of the primary database also increased. If you can relate, in 2012-13, SBI was facing a lot of flack from its customers, like their database was either down when you went to the bank, or uh, their server was performing low. Or you must have heard the term, like when you went to the bank, you must have heard the term system is down. So with system is down, it also includes their database is down. And that was the reason. But now today, when you talk about, the situation is very different because they are using Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. So GoldenGate is a product which, this is just to give you an overview of like what advantage GoldenGate can have over DataGuard. But one thing I'll tell you is, GoldenGate is not a replacement for DataGuard. DataGuard is not replacement for GoldenGate. What GoldenGate can achieve, DataGuard cannot achieve. Similarly, now if I have to tell you one advantage of DataGuard over GoldenGate, I should not say data advantage, but I should say that major difference is, GoldenGate is database level replication. That means it replicates everything block by block replication. So in fact, even if you do alter system command, or you are doing any parameter change as well, that also gets replicated using Oracle. That also gets replicated using DataGuard, which GoldenGate cannot do at all. Okay. Okay. So now let us discuss about architectural overview of Oracle GoldenGate. Now, architecture is really very important for not only GoldenGate, but any technology which you are learning. Architecture is really very important. Okay. So I'll tell you one thing before I start with the architecture. When I started learning Oracle, my first teacher told me that if you have understood this architecture, you have learned 70% of Oracle database. But Oracle database is so vast, it is really very vast. Okay. With GoldenGate, I also say same thing. If you have understood GoldenGate architecture, you consider you have learned 50 to 70% of GoldenGate. Whenever you do any troubleshooting, performance tuning, setting up of GoldenGate, everything comes from architecture. First of all, before I proceed with architecture of GoldenGate, let us discuss about different types of Oracle GoldenGate architecture. Okay. So there are two types of architectures available in GoldenGate. One is classic architecture, second is microservices architecture. So as I told you, GoldenGate was founded in 1995. And at that time, it was only GoldenGate. GoldenGate is named after famous San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. In 2009, Oracle overtook it, and since then it is known as Oracle GoldenGate. Now, from 2009 to 2017, there was only one way to configure GoldenGate, and that was through command prompt, GGSCI. Okay. Until 2017, this was called as Oracle GoldenGate. This was called as Oracle GoldenGate. In 2017, Oracle renamed it to Oracle GoldenGate Classic Architecture. And they launched a new architecture of GoldenGate, which is called as Microservices Architecture. Oracle GoldenGate Microservices Architecture. So now you have got two types of architecture available. One is Oracle GoldenGate Classic Architecture, and second is Oracle GoldenGate Microservices Architecture. So Classic Architecture allows you to set up, manage, troubleshoot, configure GoldenGate through command prompt only. So Classic Architecture allows you to set up, manage, troubleshoot, configure GoldenGate through command prompt only. Microservices Architecture allows you to set up, manage, troubleshoot, configure GoldenGate through GUI as well. And it allows for better integration with cloud applications. So with cloud applications, the integration of microservices architecture is much better in comparison to classic architecture. Okay. Another important thing to note here is microservices feature is not only GUI. It is one of the feature of microservices, but there are a lot of other features as well of microservices. So one thing here is classic architecture is available since beginning for both Oracle as well as non-Oracle databases. Okay. Microservices architecture until 19C was available for only Oracle database until GoldenGate 19C. Guys, whenever I'm talking about the version, if I don't specify, it means that it is GoldenGate version. Don't get confused with database version. I'm talking about GoldenGate version until and unless specified. So until 19C, it was available only for Oracle database. From 19C onwards, GoldenGate microservices support has been extended to 4 more heterogeneous database, including Oracle. So DB2, SQL Server, Postgres, and MySQL. These are the 4 databases along with Oracle, which are supported by microservices now. Okay. Microservices, in microservices, things runs as a service. However, in classic, things runs as a process. So this is the newer architecture. Microservices architecture is newer architecture. Another important thing I want to tell you, just for your information. 21C is the last version for classic architecture. Classic architecture is deprecating as per Oracle post 21C. That means that you don't have classic architecture, newer feature won't be introduced from going forward. So 21C, you can always install and download. It is the latest version still, but it is the last version for classic architecture. Post that, all the versions released would be for microservices architecture. So if I have to summarize in simple way, until 12.2, it was only classic architecture. From 12.3 to 21C, classic and microservices coexist. So you can choose what type of architecture you want to choose. Still, most of the implementations are done on classic architecture. The market share is not changing. It is still 80-20 in favor of classic architecture. But Oracle, yes, now it is promoting and asking all its customers to use microservices architecture. Okay. Now post 21C, it will all only be microservices architecture. Okay. Now there is one more product in GoldenGate family, which is called as Oracle GoldenGate Veridata. So GoldenGate comprises three things: Oracle GoldenGate Classic Architecture, Oracle GoldenGate Microservices, and Oracle GoldenGate Veridata. So Veridata is another separate license product which allows you to verify the data. So say for example, on source, you have got 10,000 records in a table. On target, you have 9,000 records. So what Veridata can do for you is it can identify the discrepant records for you, and it can repair those discrepancies as well for you. Veridata nowadays is getting very popular due to these cloud migrations going on. So what organizations do is they buy the short-term licenses for Veridata to verify the data between source and target. Okay. Now, one quick question which I want to ask you. With introduction of means for this question is for those who know about this, like what is integrated. So with introduction of microservices, does integrated no longer exist? What do you think? You can type in the chat window. With introduction of microservices, does integrated no longer exist? Okay. Okay, Majid has an answer no. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, it does. So I've got mixed responses. It does or it doesn't. Right? So let me answer that. Let me go to the next slide now. So now there are different types of extracts and replicats available in GoldenGate. There are different types of extracts and replicats available in GoldenGate. So there are two types of extracts. One is integrated extract and second is classic extract. So what we are talking about is the microservices is overall architecture of GoldenGate. Or classic architecture is overall architecture. We are talking about overall architecture. Under classic architecture, you have different types of extracts and replicats available, which is integrated and classic. Same way, under microservices, you can choose what type of extract or replicat you want to use. It could be either integrated or classic. So microservices exist, but microservices is a type of architecture. Same way, integrated is type of extract and replicate. Okay. The confusion why it comes, I'll tell you is, so before I answer that, just first of all, let us discuss about there are two types of extract. First is integrated extract and second is classic extract. Now, integrated extract is available from GoldenGate version 11.204 and database version 11.203. So if you want to configure your integrated extract, your minimum version should be, database version should be 11.203 and GoldenGate version should be 11.204. When GoldenGate was introduced, there was only one type of extract and it was called as extract. When integrated extract was introduced, GoldenGate renamed it to classic extract. Just like architecture, so classic term means traditional. Why people get confused between classic extract and classic architecture is because they mean that it is like confusing, of course, but by classic they mean is it is traditional. When GoldenGate was introduced initially, it was only one type of architecture. When microservices was introduced, they renamed it to classic architecture. Same way, initially when GoldenGate was there, there was only one type of extract and it was called as extract. But when integrated was introduced, they renamed it to classic extract. The existing one was renamed to classic extract. Then there are different types of replicat, like classic non-integrated or classic replicat, then integrated replicat. For configuring integrated replicat, the minimum database version should be 12c and GoldenGate should be 12. Then they introduced coordinated replicat to run non-integrated or classic replicat in parallel mode. And then parallel replicat is the latest feature which has been introduced from GoldenGate version 12.3. There are two types of parallel replicat. One is parallel non-integrated replicat and second is parallel integrated replicat. So to configure parallel non-integrated replicat, the database version should be 12.1 and GoldenGate version should be 12.3. For running parallel integrated replicat, your database version should be 12.2 and the GoldenGate version should be 12.3. Now, what are extract, what is replicat? We'll be discussing about that. Okay, but these are different types of extracts and replicats. Okay, so the answer to the question is whether integrated, with introduction of integrated, does with introduction of microservices, does integrated no longer exist? The answer to that question is microservices is type of extract. Okay, and integrated is type of extract and replicate. Now, what is extract and replicate? You will learn in subsequent slide. Okay. So I again repeat, microservices is an architecture and integrated is type of extract and replicate. So under classic architecture, you can configure different types of extracts and replicates. Under microservices architecture, you can configure different types of extracts and replicates. Okay. So now let us discuss about how GoldenGate works. You will understand now what is extract and replicate. Now you have got source database and target database. Okay. Now source database could be any Oracle or any non-Oracle supported database. Same way, your target database could be any Oracle or any non-Oracle supported database. Okay. Now each database has its own transaction logs, as I mentioned. So these transaction logs in case of Oracle is called as redo logs or backup of redo logs, which are called as archive logs. Okay. Now the transaction logs contains the committed as well as uncommitted transaction. So what you do is you configure GoldenGate capture or extract process. So capture process is also called as extract process. So you configure GoldenGate capture process, which reads the transaction logs, capture the committed transaction. It captures committed transaction. So extract process. So just to let you know, the capture and extract, these are the terms which are used interchangeably. Same way, the replicate and apply, these are the terms which are also used interchangeably. So you configure GoldenGate extract process, which reads the data out of your transaction logs and writes them to the trail files on local machine. Once the data becomes available into the trail files on local machine, remember this is the data storage. So extract process, GoldenGate extract process will extract the data from the source database. It will capture only committed transactions. Once the transactions are captured, it stores them on a local machine. The format of these trail files is kind of same as archive logs. Okay, so capture process captures the data, then writes the data on the trail files on local machine. These trail files on local machines are called as local trail files because they are local to the source database. Now, once the data becomes available into local trail, you configure data pump process which reads the data out of your local trail, sends it over TCP/IP network, and writes it to remote trail on target database. So extract process extracts the data, writes to local trail. Once the data becomes available into local trail, data pump process sends that data over TCP/IP network and writes it to trail file on target machine, which are called as remote trail. These trail files are binary format files, and the trail file residing on target machine because they are remote to source database. Hence, they are called as remote trail file. So the pump process reads the data from the local trail, sends it over TCP/IP network, and writes it to remote trail on target site. Once the data becomes available into remote trail, there is a delivery or Replicat process which reads the data out of your remote trail and applies it to target database. So the extract process extracts the data. Upon reading the committed transaction, it writes them to the local trail file. Once the data becomes available into local trail, the data pump process sends the data over TCP/IP network and writes it to remote trail on target site. Once the data becomes available into remote trail on target, the Replicat process applies it to target database. Now remember one thing here. Each process over here has a source to read from and a target to write to. So what is the source of the capture process? So the source of the capture process is source database. The ultimate source is source database. And the target is local trail. The source of pump process is local trail and target is remote trail. The source of the Replicat process is remote trail and target is target database. So each process over here has a source to read from and a target to write to. Another important point to note here is, you see, pump process is sending the data over TCP/IP network. So remember one thing, pump process doesn't send the trail file over TCP/IP network. Pump process doesn't send the trail file over TCP/IP network. It sends the data return into local trail and writes it to remote trail on target side. Okay, it writes it to remote trail on target side. So I again repeat, the extract process reads the transaction logs in sequential manner. Remember, another important thing with GoldenGate is it reads the transactions in sequential manner. That means the transaction getting committed first will be read first, then the second transaction which is getting committed later. So the extract process reads the transactions in sequential manner and captures only committed transactions. Once The transactions are captured by the extract process. It writes them to the trail file on target machine. Once the data is available into trail file, GoldenGate data pump process reads the data from the local trail file. The trail file residing on source machine is called as local trail. So the data pump process reads the data out of your local trail, sends it over TCP/IP network, and writes it to remote trail on target machine. So data from local trail gets returned to remote trail. Now, once the data gets returned into remote trail, the Replicat process reads the data from remote trail and applies it to target database. Okay. So remember one thing, these trail file consume space on your operating system. So you need to have operating system space defined for it. Now, GoldenGate also supports bidirectional replication. So that is another difference between data guard and GoldenGate. So GoldenGate also supports bidirectional replication. So bidirectional means both the sites can be live and the application can be connected to any of the site. The transaction will be replicated to other site. Okay. So bidirectional, what happens now is both the sites access source and both the sites access target. So whatever transactions are happening on site 2, they will be replicated to site. Whatever transactions are happening on site 1, they will be replicated to site. Similarly, whatever transactions now happen on site 2, they should be replicated to site. So now in bidirectional, what will happen? The extract process will also reside on site B. Whatever transactions happens on site B, they will be extracted by extract and returned to local trail on site B. Once the transaction becomes available into local trail on site B, the data pump process reads the data from local trail and writes it to remote trail on site A. Once the data becomes available into remote trail, the Replicat process configured on site A will apply the data to the site A database. So bidirectional, I always say one thing. Bidirectional is nothing but two-way unidirectional with some consideration. Bidirectional is two-way unidirectional. That means just like you are setting up GoldenGate replication from site 1 to site 2. In the same way, you will be setting it up from site 2 to site 1. Okay. I again repeat, but guys, this architecture is really very important. Okay. Now I'm getting few questions like what are the parameters to check local trail, remote trail, or when does all process act, or is there any condition? Guys, all these questions will be answered for you subsequently. Like as the session goes on, this is our first session. Don't worry, take it lightly. We are just getting introduced to Oracle GoldenGate. This course covers up to advanced level. So in the subsequent sessions, your questions will be answered. Okay. It's the first session, so don't expect all the questions to be answered in the first session. We are going step by step. We are taking first step today, then the second step, and then third step. We'll be learning. So we are not going to learn everything in one session. We have to understand that. We are going step by step. And first step is to get introduced to GoldenGate. Next step would be to download GoldenGate and do installation. Third step would be to do configuration. And then fourth step comes as troubleshooting. There you'll learn. So when you move step by step, you learn a lot. Okay. Now, one valid question which is there is, do we get duplication of data in bidirectional? So remember one thing. I said, I again repeat, bidirectional is nothing but two-way unidirectional with some considerations. So what you are mentioning, you have hit the nail correctly. So the way we have to do configuration, that part comes under consideration. So of course, we won't let duplication to happen. If you don't consider the issues, then yes, there are chances, but you have to do the configuration. So that part is covered in bidirectional. But your point is absolutely valid. What you thought, is there any chance of duplication in bidirectional? I would say yes, if it's not configured properly. So that's why bidirectional is nothing but two-way unidirectional with some consideration. Very good question. Okay, so now guys, you will see I'll emphasize or focus on architecture a lot, because architecture is very important. As I told you, if you have understood this architecture, you have learned 50 to 70% of Golden Gate. Whether you do any configuration, whether you do any troubleshooting, whether you do any analysis, everything related to Golden Gate comes from this architecture. So that's why this architecture is very important. Okay. And another important thing, this architecture is not as complex as database as well. You can see there are only three processes involved: extract, pump, and replicate. Along with that, there is local trail and remote trail. Okay. Now, how Golden Gate works? You configure Golden Gate extract process, which captures the committed transaction, writes to local trail. Once the data becomes available into local trail, data pump process sends the data over TCP/IP network and writes it to remote trail. As soon as the data becomes available into remote trail, the replicate process applies it to target database. So in bidirectional, both the sites are live. So if any transaction coming on site A, it will be replicated to site B. Whatever transactions are coming on site B, they will be replicated to site A. Okay. Now, few minutes back, I talked about there are two types of extracts. One is integrated extract and second is classic extract. What is the difference between them? Let us see about that. So when Golden Gate was introduced initially, there was only one way to configure Golden. I mean, there was only one type of extract, and that was classic extract. That was classic extract. Then Golden Gate launched a new architecture, which is called as, sorry, not new architecture. Then Golden Gate launched a new extract, which is called as integrated extract. Now, what is the difference between the two? What is the difference between classic extract and integrated extract? Let me tell you. So, first of all, let us discuss about classic extract. So, one thing which we talked when we were getting introduced to Golden Gate was Golden Gate is a product which has which has impact on the database, right? So first of all, let us discuss about what kind of impact we were talking about. So this extract process, this first of all, I'm talking about the classic extract. How it works is, the classic extract, what it does is it establishes connectivity with source database, and then it reads the transaction logs in sequential manner, the transactions in transaction logs in sequential manner, and then it writes them to the trail file. So here the extract process is directly in classic extract. The extract process establishes direct connectivity with the source database. Okay. Integrated extract, how it works. Integrated extract doesn't establishes direct connectivity with the source database. There is one more layer in between, which is called as log miner database. So what happens is, log miner is a copy of your redo logs or archive logs of the database. So as soon as you commit some data on the source database, the copy of that changes gets returned into the redo logs or archive logs. Means the changes gets returned into redo logs and archive logs, and then the copy of those changes gets returned into a log miner. So what happens here is, so you see, from database, changes are getting returned into transaction logs of the database, and from there it is getting returned to the log miner database. Now, what happens here is, in case of integrated extract, integrated extract does not establishes the connectivity with source database. There is a layer in between which is called as log miner. So whatever transactions gets committed on, so means whatever transaction gets returned into the redo logs, the backup of those or the copy of those transaction gets returned into the log miner, and then log miner passes on the changes which are required by the extract process in form of LCRs. LCR stands for logical change records. LCR stands for logical change records. So the integrated extract, instead of establishing the connectivity with directly with source database, it receives the changes from the log miner database. So whatever changes happens to the database, log miner gets those changes and then passes on those changes to the extract process in form of LCR. So basically now here, the extract process is not reading the transaction logs or filtering out transactions from the transaction logs. It is done by this log miner, and whatever changes are needed by the extract process, log miner passes on those changes to the extract process, integrated extract process. Okay. Now, one thing I want to tell you here is the okay. Now, this log miner is internally created. It's not a separate database which gets created, but you must have heard that to mine the archive logs, you use log miner. So it's the same thing. It's not a separate database which you have to create. You basically you don't, when we do the configuration, you will see and you will understand. You don't do any separate configuration anywhere. You just register the extract process with the database and automatically log miner gets created. But this is just for your information. But for the information, you need to understand how how integrated extract works. So integrated extract, when you configure integrated extract, there is one more layer in between of transaction logs of the database and the extract process, which is called as log miner. So whatever changes happens to the database, the copy of those changes gets returned into the log miner, and then log miner passes on those changes to the extract process, whatever is needed by the extract process in form of LCR, and then extract process writes them to local trail, and then data pump reads the data from local trail and sends it over TCP/IP network. Okay, now one thing here I want to tell you, and then I would like to answer. The integrated extract is 5 times faster than the classic extract. This is true? If you want to test, yes, that is also correct. The integrated extract is 5 times faster than the classic extract. But how could it be possible? If I look at the classic extract, it is interacting directly with the source database. But when we look at this integrated extract, there is one more layer in between, which is log miner. How come it is possible that the performance of integrated extract is faster than classic extract? Ideally, it should be less or same, right? It cannot be more. Anyone would like to answer? How come the performance of integrated extract be faster than classic? Anyone would like to answer? Because it is not. Okay, Sachin is saying because it is not filtering. What do you mean by it is not filtering? It doesn't. So guys, don't give it. What do you mean by it? Okay. Copy of log already stored in log miner. Okay. Nanne is saying because of log miner. Okay, that's correct. All the main work has already been done by log miner. So very good. Thanks for answering, everyone. I received good responses. So understand one thing. I'll give you one example for it. Let me open Notepad. That way I can explain it better. And this answer, guys, let me tell you, this answer I found myself. In fact, I'd never, I mean, in none of the Oracle documentation or anywhere, I've not seen this answer. So what I'm telling you, this is based on my knowledge and experience. I'm telling you. Okay. So consider your redo logs first of all. Okay. Or archive logs. They contain transactions. Okay. Now they contain. So remember one thing: your redo logs and archive logs contains every schema transactions, whether it's a system or any other Oracle reserved schema transaction or any application schema transaction. So it contains, say for example, redo logs contain 10,000 system transactions first, system schema related transaction. After that, it has 1,000 sys transactions. Then it has again 100,000 system related transaction, and then 50,000 sys related transaction. After that, it has two transactions related to EMP11 table, DPT11 table, which we are capturing from Oracle GOldengate. After that, again, there are 100,000 system transactions and 200,000 sys transactions. And then again, you get two transactions related to EMP11. Right. Now, in extract process, you have given that you want to extract, in the parameter file of GoldenGate, you can define like what all tables data you want to extract data of. So there might be 1,000 schemas, 1,000 tables in the database. You don't want to extract all. You only want to extract and apply the data of only few particular tables. So in the extract, you have given that you want to capture the data of these two tables, DPT11 and EMP11. Okay. So when you configure GoldenGate Classic Extract, though it connects to the source database directly, but it does the data filtration, or it checks the data by reading the transaction logs, each and every transaction. So when the Classic Extract comes, it has to first read, it is external to the database, and it has to read first these 10,000 transactions which are of no use for it, then 1,000, then again these transactions. After that, it will capture two transactions related to DPT1. Then again, it will read these transactions, system which are not needed, but it has to read because in between there might be some transactions which are related to the tables which it has to capture, and then it will capture these two transactions. So the thing is, the extract process, GoldenGate extract process, being external to the database, has to do this data filtering part on its own, which takes time and which is not performance centric as well. Okay, that's why classic extract performance is a bit slow. But when you do the same task with log miner being internal to the database, do it quickly and then passes on the changes needed by the extract process, these two transactions and these two transactions in near real time. So because the integrated extract is tightly coupled with the database, it gets integrated with the database. With help of log miner, it receives the changes whatever it needs, and hence the performance of integrated extract is faster than classic extract. Okay, another important thing here is internally in integrated extract, there are multiple processes internally which runs. Like the integrated extract comprises multiple processes internally. Like reader reads the data, preparer prepares the data, builder builds the data, and captures the data. So reader basically reads the data, reads the task of reading the transaction logs, prepares the data, builder builds the data, and then extraction happens by the extract process. And then those then the transactions which are needed by the extract process are captured and passes onto the extract process. So internally, there are four processes which gets build up when you configure GoldenGate integrated extract. So another important thing is at the database level, when you're configuring the integrated extract, number of processes which are required in the database by extract processes four. These are the four processes which internally gets created when you configure GoldenGate integrated capture. Okay. So there are two types of architectures. First is class. There are two types of extracts. One is integrated extract and classic extract. So classic extract establishes connectivity directly with the database, and integrated extract gets tightly coupled with the database, and it receives the changes from log miner. Okay. Now, classic extract is not deprecated. Classic extract is still used, but if you are using multi-tenant architecture that is container pluggable, you no longer can use classic extract. Multi-tenant databases only support integrated extract. But one more thing, integrated extract is only available for Oracle databases. For non-Oracle database, still you will be using classic extract. Okay. Okay. So now let us discuss about download and installation of Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. Let us discuss about that. So first of all, let us now we are going to install if, and we are going to download and install Oracle GoldenGate on the virtual boxes which are provided with the training and which we have. So these virtual boxes are shared with you as well. You can use them. Okay. Now these are the virtual boxes which are shared with you as well. Now, first of all, say for example, you are given the task to set up GoldenGate. You are part of the project. You have been hired as a GoldenGate consultant, and you are given the task to set up GoldenGate in your environment. So first and foremost thing is there is no GoldenGate right now. And remember, so first and foremost thing is you need to provide GoldenGate requirements for your server, like what hardware you need, how much space you need, how will you install GoldenGate. All these requirements should be done properly. So related to hardware requirement for GoldenGate, first of all comes how much CPU we need. So generally for GoldenGate, for average environment, 4 to 8 core CPU is okay for GoldenGate. Means if you can request for more, that's okay. But 4 to 8 core CPU is optimal for GoldenGate performance. Okay. Second thing is space requirement. How much space you need for installing Oracle GoldenGate? Because for GoldenGate, you require the mount point. You require space in that mount point, right? So second thing, what you have to do is you have to perform a space requirement for that. So for space requirement, you need to decide whether you want to use any existing mount point like /data or /u01, or you want to create a new mount point like /GoldenGate. Any option, whatever option you want to choose, you can do. So you will need to perform the space requirement. So either, first of all, decide before you do the space requirement, decide where you want to install GoldenGate. If you want to uh, provide a dedicated mount point, you can do that. Or if you want to create under existing directory, under that you can install GoldenGate. Okay. Now, how would you do the space calculation? How much space you need? How would you decide that? So for doing the space calculation, what I follow, so each person has different calculation methods. Like the way I'm calculating, it might not be followed by some other person. But I'm telling you as per what I follow generally. So Golden Gate software itself doesn't need much space. Golden Gate software itself need 1 to 2 GB of space. But you need space for the mount point, for the trail file storage. You see these trail files? These trail files require space on your operating system. So you need to do proper space calculation. Now, what I follow generally is, I'll tell you. What I do is, for space calculation, I take out last 30 to 60 days day-wise archive log generation report. Okay. 30 to 60 days, last 30 to 60 days day-wise archive log generation days. So say for example, on one day it was 20 GB. On one day it was only 1 GB archive log generation. On another day it was 100 GB. Then on another day it was 100 GB. Right. So what I do is I take average of 7 days highest archive log generation. So say for example, on one day it was 100 GB, on another day it was 20 GB, and I take out 7 highest archive log generation days. Okay, and then I average it out. Suppose the average comes out to be 25 GB archive log generation per day, right? You consider that there would be 25 GB archive log generation per day. So for one day, I need minimum 25 GB as of 12th of August 2023 for Golden Gate Trail file generation. Okay. Then I multiply it by 7. This 7 signifies number of days for which the trail files need to be kept for. Just like archive logs, you have archive log deletion policy at the database level. Like you decide, say for example, you want to keep the archive log for 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. Same way for trail files as well. You need to decide how many days you need to keep the trail files for. So generally, this requirement is given by the client, but generally, or as a thumb rule, we keep 7 days archive log until and unless we keep 7 days trail files until and unless there is some specific requirement or specific instruction given by client or management. Okay, so if I multiply 25 into 7, it comes out to be 175 GB. So as of today, if I consider today's data, for storing 7 days trail files, I need approximately 175 GB of space. And that is as of today, right? But this calculation, the requirement, whatever you don't give based on today. You do assumption based on today, but you do forecasting as well for next 2 to 5 years. Right? Because say for example, if the server is set up for you for today, and tomorrow if you go and ask, I need 100 GB more space, that's not going to work, and that's not professional as well, right? Because going forward, it is expected that your database size will grow, right? And you have to do this space calculation or space requirement or any CPU requirement, you have to provide based on assumption for next and keeping forecast in mind for next 2 to 5 years, right? So based on that, for today I need 175 GB. Now, based on the forecasting, I'll multiply it by 2 to 5 times. Okay, and then I will request that much space for my project. So I will request 350 to 800 GB of space for my environment. Okay, but again, as I told you, this space calculation criteria could be is followed by each and every person differently. Like some person may take like the highest archive log generation in last 60 days and then multiply it by 7, and then based on that they can identify. So each person has its own way of calculating the space. I follow this because based on my experience, what I have done, I've identified that this much will be sufficient. Say for example, if this much archive log is generating and this much space I need for next 2 to 5 years, I should be good for that. Now suppose if someone, they are hesitant to provide you this much space, you can tell them clearly that today, for today itself, you need 175 GB. So if you're looking for 175 GB, yes, it should be good for today. But if something happens, say for example, after a week or after a month, you won't be responsible for it. But generally, you get whatever space you require. Generally, most of the clients don't hesitate. Some may show some concern in that. So you have already asked for, say, for example, 800 GB of space. So you have some headroom to reduce it, right? So that's the thing. And another thing is this CPU are overall, like each Golden Gate process requires 50 MB of CPU. So it's not much which each process consumes. So you don't have to worry. Overall, you are requesting for 4 to 8 core CPU. Okay. Now, after you have done capacity requirement, third thing you need to decide is which OS user you need to use to install Golden Gate. Some places you can use Oracle. Some places you can use any user apart from Oracle, which is GG admin or GG user, right? So if in your environment DBAs are going to use or install DBAs are going to manage your Golden Gate environment, then you can choose Oracle account to install Golden Gate. But if Golden Gate and DBA's responsibility are segregated, in that case, you should choose, like DBA team is different than Golden Gate team. In that case, you should use different user than Oracle, like GG user or GG admin, and ensure that that user should be part of O install OS user. Okay, you have to ensure that because it needs to read the log files, transaction log. So that's why O install group is needed. Okay. Now, once all these things are done and server is ready, then you can go ahead and download the Oracle Golden Gate software. Yeah, Kishore, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi, Ashish. So regarding this hardware requirements in the number one, the CPUs, 4 or 8 cores, which you gave as an example for Golden Gate setup, um, is that 4 or 8 cores on top of the cores available for the database?
Yes, I will say why. See, when capacity requirement, as I told you initially as well, when capacity requirement was done initially, it it was done for database, right? It would, if it would have been done for Golden Gate as well, they wouldn't ask you for doing the separate capacity requirement, right? So separately, yes, you should request, because see, the whole purpose is not to let the existing environment suffer because of new, because you're introducing something new, right? So this is one of the major cause as well, I have noticed. And this is what I tell you during this training based on my experience, whatever I have gain from my experience so far working for Golden Gate projects. What happens is when you install Golden Gate on the same server, means on the same capacity, what database is using. When you install Golden Gate, it impacts database, right? And the finger is pointed directly towards Golden Gate. But we never consider that we never provided the extra CPUs for Golden Gate. See, if on the same hardware we are putting another piece of puzzle, it is definitely going to impact. If the database is running on a server, and on top of that, if you put Golden Gate, you have to be ready for the impact, and the impact will be negative definitely. So the answer to your question is yes. If you are doing the capacity planning, look for extra separate CPUs. If you think that
So,
now another important thing is there might be a counter question that the database server already has sufficient amount of CPUs, and if they are okay to use those number of, and if they think that the database is not utilizing those many CPUs, then you can use the same Golden Gate. But yes, when you are asked to do the capacity planning, you should put this as a point that you need separate.
so a follow-up question would be, um, let's say, we have a multi-tenant on the source side with a lot of PDBs on the container database. So how are we going to calculate the number of extracts? Because for each of the PDBs, you'll have each extract, and would that so is there a way we can define based on the number of PDBs on the source side to
Now,
increase
I'll
the
answer that for
cost?
you. So
Okay.
these CPU calculation I have provided you, it is based on average environment, which will suffice more 98% of Golden Gate environment. So as I told you, each means number of you can just for others information, you can configure multiple extracts and multiple replicates. Like one Golden Gate environment can have one manager process can have up to 256 processes. If in 21C there is no change. Until 19C it used to have one Golden Gate environment can have 256 number of processes. So to handle these many processes, these many CPUs are fine. You are good with that. Okay.
So Ashish, this to store this trial files, we are this new mount points. Should they be the local mount points, or can we use the ASM?
No, you cannot use ASM. You cannot
Okay,
store Golden Gate trail files on ASM.
okay, thanks.
Okay.
Uh, Ashish, one last follow-up. So in 19C, you can have 4 or 8 cores for the any number of given extracts. Is that a right statement? Did I understand clearly?
So average Golden Gate environment will support this. So okay, again, the answer to your question is even if you configure, so again, it depends on different of other factors. But for Golden Gate, 4 to 8 core CPU should be good. The answer to that to your question is this.
Okay, so even if there are, I mean, would that same apply when you add the parallel feature in the extracts or in the replicates?
It should be fine. Yeah,
Would that
that's
number
what I told
change?
you. See, this information, what I'm telling you, it is based on my experience, what I have noticed. So yes, based on considering all the factors, you are good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Uh, Ashish sir, this is Rohit here.
Yeah, Rohit.
So do we need to provision for the memory as well? Memory per
What do you
process.
mean?
So suppose I have 10 extract process. So normally to run that extract process, we need to have 1.5 GB of memory allocated per extract,
So
like
that
how we
is
are
you
allocated.
are talking about SGA. That is different. We are not going into. So we are right now. We are not. We are doing hardware capacity planning here.
Okay, okay,
Okay. So the
Uh,
4 to 8 core CPU are good when you are using Oracle GoldenGate. So you should be good with that. Okay. So in capacity planning, like there are several factors involved. You have to consider those as well, depending on what environment you are working on, what else is running on the server. So those factors might influence your decision. But yes, these requirements or these way what I'm telling you, these suffice almost 90% of Golden Gate environment. Remaining which are really very complex, you will understand when you work on those, you will understand that you need different approach or you need different number of CPUs or more space you need. Okay. Now,
How much should be
now
the IO calculation?
everything is
IO.
done, Kishore. Kishore, everything is done here. Okay. You don't need
Okay.
anything separately. Okay. Now, next thing is once the capacity planning is done. Okay. Next thing is you go ahead and download Oracle Golden Gate. Okay. Now, before you can download Oracle Golden Gate, there are few things you need to keep in mind. Remember one thing, Golden Gate binaries are platform specific. Golden Gate binaries are database specific. So each database, like Oracle database has different binary. Oracle Golden Gate for SQL Server has different binary. Postgres database has different binary. Same way, each platform have different binary. Like Linux, you will have to download different binary. Sun Solaris, you will have to download different binary. Windows, you will have to download different binary, and so on. Okay, so for downloading the binary, you have to note down few things. First thing you should note down is what is source database type, whether it is Oracle or any other non-Oracle database. Second thing you have to note down is source database version. So we are talking about two different servers. We are talking about source database as well as target database here. Okay, so you should note down the source database type, source database version. Okay, same way you should note down source database platform, that is OS version. In the same way, for target side as well, you should note down target database type, then target database version. You have to do this before you download the binary. Okay, so you should note down target database version, target database type, and target database platform. So the VMs which we have, okay, these VMs have Oracle database. The database version is 19C, and the platform which we have is Enterprise Linux, both source and target. So we'll note this down. So the source is Oracle, target is 19C, database is 19C, and the platform is Enterprise Linux. Same way for target database version as well. Check, database is 19C, the target database version is 19C, and the platform means OS version is Enterprise Linux 7. Now, once you have identified these details, now you can go ahead and download the binaries. You can go ahead and download the binaries. Now the question comes, which binary should I download? Should I download Oracle GoldenGate 12C? Should I download Oracle GoldenGate 18C? Should I download Oracle GoldenGate 19C? Or should I download Oracle GoldenGate 21C? Which one do you think we should be downloading? Anyone?
Higher version.
Okay. And what if the higher version is not supporting my...
It will depend upon the compatibility matrix.
Absolutely. So guys, what I'm telling you right now applies to all version or any technology you are working in this world. not only Golden Gate, whether you are working on database, whether you are working on Informatica or any other technology. Each technology, whatever you use, has a compatibility matrix, certification matrix, or as someone mentioned, compatibility matrix, you can say. Okay, it tells you whether the certification matrix will tell you whether the version you are trying to use is certified for the database version and for the platform you want to use. Okay, so let us see. So the latest, so to check the certification matrix of Golden Gate is a Fusion middleware certificate, Fusion middleware product. Okay, so go to Google and type Fusion middleware certification matrix. Okay, go to Fusion middleware certification matrix, select the first link on what you get. Okay, now here you can find certification metrics related to all Oracle product like Oracle GoldenGate and Oracle Validata. Okay, and all versions are available. Certification metrics of all versions are available. Like 21C certification matrix is there, 19C certification matrix is there. Then below you can find 12.3, 12.2, 12.1, 11G certification matrix is in fact there. Also, you can find Validata certification matrix on the same page. Okay. So now I always say one thing. People ask me which version should we go for? Whether should we go for 21C or go with 19C? My answer to the question is always go with the latest supported version. So say for example, if your environment supports later, if it support 21C, 21C is the latest version, go with 21C. If 21C is not supported, then go with 19C. If 19C is not supported, then go with the another lower version. So go with the latest supported version. So we'll download certification metrics for 21C and confirm if our environment supports, if our platform, database type, database version supports 21C or not. Okay, now I'll select third, Golden Gate. Guys, remember one thing, this certification metrics remain same whether you are using it for classic or microservices. Okay, now here it is so now to check another thing, I want you to, next time you should not be asking this question, you should be able to answer this question automatically. There is a question which is being asked, does Golden Gate supports a particular database? Say for example, does Golden Gate supports Postgres? Okay, from where can you find? You can find that answer from the certification matrix. Whether Golden Gate supports a particular Linux platform, from where you can find the answer? You can find the answer from here. You can get this answer from the certification matrix. Okay, so first of all, so another important thing is this certification matrix is for 21C. So it will only tell you what database, what platforms Golden Gate 21C supports. So it is possible like 21C may not be supporting, like the version 21C may not be launched for your database or for your platform what you are looking for. Then check 19C. If 19C is doesn't also show that, then it doesn't mean that Golden Gate does not support. It only means that that version does not support. It might be possible that the previous version might be supporting it. The newer version hasn't been launched yet. It might be in progress, or there may be some other reason for it. Okay, so 21C Golden Gate supports these databases. It supports DB2 LUW, DB2 different flavors it supports. It supports MySQL, it supports Oracle, it supports Postgres, it supports SQL Server, it supports Teradata, and it supports timestamp database. But this is about 21C. It's not like overall Golden Gate supports these many databases only. Golden Gate 21C supports these many databases. So we'll select Oracle Golden Gate for Oracle because our database is Oracle. So that's why now I'm filtering out based on based on the requirement I have. Okay. Now see, Oracle Golden Gate for Oracle it supports only two platforms. One is Linux and second is Windows. So it doesn't mean Oracle GoldenGate for Oracle doesn't support GoldenGate Oracle on Sun Solaris or any other. It means that older version might be supporting it. This version only supports Oracle GoldenGate for Oracle on Linux and Windows. Okay. Now ours is Linux. I'll do the filtration here as well. Okay. Now we are RHEL 7. So that is supported. Now we need to check. So Oracle is supported by 21C. RHEL 7 is supported by 21C. So we are good. And it also supports database version 11G, 12C, 19C, and 21C. So our database version is 19C. Hence we are good. And both classic and microservices architectures are supported. Okay. So as per certification matrix, we can go ahead and use 21C GoldenGate. Now, just in case, if your database, here is Oracle database. Okay, so you can check all, okay. This is, let me uncheck this product family. Let me go to right. Okay, so what all databases are supported by this 21C? You can get it from here, like Amazon, Aurora, MySQL, and so on. You can check. So it supports Azure SQL databases. Okay, it supports Azure SQL managed instance as well. Means just to show you. So this 21C support these many databases: MySQL database server, MySQL database service, Oracle database, Oracle timestamp, Postgres and derivatives, single store DB, Teradata, and MariaDB also it supports. Okay, so it supports multiple databases. So this certification matrix give you idea about lot of things. So you can check the comments if you have any specific requirement. No, we have to select Oracle. Why did I select Azure? Just one. Okay. So GoldenGate 21C as per the certification matrix certifies, and we can use this. So now what we'll do is we can go ahead and download the 21C binaries. Okay. So we'll go to browser. We'll do download GoldenGate 21C. We'll go to OTN. Okay, over here you can find your Oracle GoldenGate 21.3. So remember, as I told you, Oracle GoldenGate binaries are separate for each database type and platform. Like Oracle GoldenGate 21.3 here, it is for Oracle on Linux. Okay, so if you have Oracle on Windows, this binary won't work. Okay, so if you are using Oracle database on Linux, then only download this binary. Now see, then microservices binaries are different. So binary for each platform is different. Each database is the type is different. Along with that, binaries for microservices and classic are also different. So the one which doesn't say anything, which only says GoldenGate, that means it is classic architecture binaries. But the one which says microservices, that means it is microservices binary. Okay, then you have got these binary for Oracle GoldenGate for Oracle on Windows. Then these are microservices for Windows. Same way you can find the binaries over here. These are MySQL binaries, Postgres binary on Linux. So now, if you have to check the older version binaries, okay, suppose the binaries you are looking for is not present over here. So for the older versions, from where can you find the binaries? Anyone? I see only 21C binaries are there. I'm looking for 19C binary. From where I can
E-delivery.
see? E-delivery, absolutely. So go to edelivery.oracle.com. E-delivery. Click on sign in.
Ashish, is microservices include classic binaries as well?
No, as I told, those are different binaries. Each architecture binary is different. So if you want to use microservices, you will have to download separate binary. Okay, so type here Oracle GoldenGate. So here, if whatever version binary you want to download, you can download from here. So you have got binaries from 11.1 onwards. Okay, so select, say for example, you want to download binary for 12.3. You can select from here and then follow the instructions to download. And then select the, here you can select for what platform you want to use, say for example, Linux. Click on continue. You have to agree. And then here you can find Oracle GoldenGate 12.2 for Oracle on Linux, x86. So these are the binaries present. So it is available for Oracle database. Okay. So the older binaries you can download from edelivery.oracle.com. Now, once you have decided to download which version you want to download, go ahead and download. So the training, this training is on classic architecture. So we can go ahead and download this file. You review the statement, click on this, and then go ahead and download. The download will happen. Now, once download happens, you can transfer it to your machines. Now, these virtual boxes which are shared with you, they already have binaries. So the binaries are kept under /home/Oracle/softwares folder. Under here, you can find the binaries. So all the binaries like microservices binaries are here, Veridata binaries are here, classic 21C and 19C binaries you can find. So the location of binaries is under /home/Oracle and /software. So what you need to do, they come in zip. So they are present on both GGate 1 and GGate 2. You have got two machines. They are present on both GGate 1 as well as GGate 2. So you can just go ahead and unzip the binary and download it. So the next session we are going to do tomorrow. Okay. So in the next session, the timing remains same. In the next session, we'll be discussing about installation of Oracle GoldenGate on both GGate 1 and GGate 2. And then we'll discuss about options to install GoldenGate and then prerequisite to set up GoldenGate. And then if time permits, we'll move to next, but I don't think we'll have that much time. So in the next session, we'll discuss about installation, options to install, and prerequisites to set up Oracle GoldenGate. So the steps to do prior to the session is set up the lab basically. Set up the lab, the virtual boxes which are shared with you. Set up the lab, download them, set them up, and see the binaries location. That's it. In the next session, we are going to install the binaries. Okay. And guys, next session is tomorrow, same timing. And remember, from tomorrow's session onwards, we'll be discussing about installation and doing the configuration and setup of Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. If I have to quickly recap what we discussed in today's session is we discussed about introduction to Oracle GoldenGate. Then we discussed about different types of architectures available in GoldenGate Classic and Microservices. And then we also discussed about what is Veridata. Then we discussed about why GoldenGate, different types of extract processes, classic and integrated, different types of integrated, different types of Replicat. And then we discussed about Oracle GoldenGate architecture, how data flow happens in Oracle GoldenGate. Okay. And then we discussed about certification metrics and what things to keep in mind while you are downloading and doing the installation. So in the next session, we also discussed about hardware requirement and space requirement. And then in the next session, we'll discuss about installation of Oracle GoldenGate. So GoldenGate supports both GUI and silent installation. We'll be discussing in the next session. Okay. So can we do heterogeneous replication in the course? Yes, I'll be introducing heterogeneous replication, Oracle to Oracle as well as SQL Server. I'm trying to procure the license for SQL Server. As soon as it is done, I'll be introducing that. Okay, microservices and binary classic binaries are different. Okay, from e-delivery, yes, you can find all version binary.
Ashish, from 21C, microservice classic architecture is obsolete, right?
No, 21C classic architecture is after 21C, it would be deprecated as per Oracle. So that means no new classic architecture will be introduced. Okay, so we'll continue the session tomorrow. Thank you.